Okay, so Tub 6, Part 2. This is a Atari 7800 controller that would be used out of Australia. Now, these were something you would buy as options. I don't think they actually came with the system. This little thing will unscrew on here, so you can have a flat pad or a control pad. These are actually fairly nice. It's high quality. The reason that these aren't the standard controllers, though, is because like Atari, like I showed you earlier with the 2600, you had paddle controllers. In order to make that compatible, the original 7800 controller actually had a paddle controller built into the joystick, which I will show you when I dig it up. But as far as like playing regular games, this is actually a fairly good, high-quality controller. Tiny, just like the original Nintendo controllers. You know that's where they ripped it off from. But overall, good showing by Atari to try and capture some of that. Just didn't work out for them. This is a Atari joystick made by Epyx. It's the 500XJ. This was supposed to be revolutionary. This is actually a fairly good controller, because what you would do is you would hold it in your hand like this, and that would be your fire button down there. So you could play like this and use the trigger. A lot of people didn't like this controller, but it is actually fairly comfortable. It was designed for comfort. You know, Epyx went with the whole ergonomics early on. It was a good joystick. Still have it today. And there were a lot of different third-party joysticks that came out back in the day. Let's see, this is another Atari 2600 controller. We've already looked at that. For instance, here's another one. This is a quick stick, or a slick stick, excuse me. Same thing, one button. It didn't move very much. You know, one of the problems with the Atari 2600 controllers is that this has a rather large, you know, range of movement, so it just gets kind of fatiguing to play after a while. Where they would try to come up with these that didn't move very much, so you didn't get fatigued. It just didn't quite figure out the whole gamepad idea where you could just do it with your thumb, you know. But they put this ball on here to make it more arcade-like. Button was very, very good, solid construction. It's typical of the time. Of course, just like with any game consoles, there were many, controllers and things that came out that were very generic and cheap, just like they are today. Alright, so here is a controller for the Sears Video Arcade 2. Now this is back to a 2600, but remember when I was explaining that you could do joystick or paddle, there was a toggle switch on the unit. Here, I'll show you. Right here called joystick and paddle, and that would actually change the configuration of this controller here that you would use in your hand. And this, you had two buttons on it. They were never really utilized, but this would actually be a joystick or a paddle controller. So, if you're going to play 2600, this was an easy way to go ahead and play it, because you didn't have to keep switching controllers around. Another Atari 2600 joystick, another Sears Video Arcade 2 joystick. I don't have 7800 joysticks in this tub, so that's telling me that I need to, divide this tub up, which is sort of my purpose. Now here is pole position for the Atari 2600. If you had a 2600 game system, like here's the Sears Video Arcade, you take this cartridge, pop it in, and that's how the game would play. And a lot of game cartridges weren't just one game like they are today. There's just various options. They used to think of each game being a little bit different. Different things would happen. You would toggle through a bunch of different options to play 50 variations of the same game sometimes, but that's just how it was. It's all scummy. Now, as I said earlier, here's an Atari 5200 cartridge, and here's a 2600 cartridge side by side. You can see there's a big difference in the size of the game cartridges. The 5200 was just a more powerful system, and these cartridges just had a little bit more weight, better graphics, more power, versus the original 2600. And we got a whole bunch of cartridges in here. Might as well take a look at them while we got some time. Here we got Snake, Hangman, the original Asteroids. Everybody had that cartridge, right? Of course they did. If you're old enough to remember 2600, there's some games you just probably had, and Asteroids was probably one of them. Missile Command was another. Fishing Derby. Atlantis, Video Olympics, Pac-Man, terrible version of Pac-Man, and Adventure. The original game cartridges would look like this. It was just game program Adventure. It had no pictures or anything on it. This is just how Atari would sell them, and there was a whole set that just were very plain. Now later on they would release the same games, but they would actually include better, you know, cover art and things like that. But when the system was very new, ew, look, there's a dead bug on there, gross. That's how it was. So probably a colony of bugs are going to come out. So then I also have a whole bunch of games that have never been opened. They're a little bit, some of the plastic has kind of stretched the card or the boxes a little bit because this plastic is shrunk. There's a 2600 football. There's 7800 Dig Dug unopened. Munch, crunch, punch. Ninja Golf. That's right. Ninja Golf came out for the 7800. Now you're saying to yourself, boy, that sounds brilliant. Nintendo came out with things like, oh, I don't know, Donkey Kong and stuff for the NES, and Atari came out with things like Ninja Golf for the 7800 to try and compete with the NES. Just wasn't going to happen for them. But I bet today, a lot of you were thinking, boy, I'd like to play that game. That sounds crazy. Hey, I haven't played it either. It's still sealed. Scrapyard Dog, the 7800. Joust, 2600, unopened. Donkey Kong for the 7800. That's right. They actually licensed Nintendo's own games for their system to try and compete against the Nintendo Entertainment System. And Nintendo was like, all right, man, go for it. And it still didn't work. Amazing, huh? And it was actually a really competent version because it actually had the Pie Factory, you know. It's good stuff. But at least I think it did. But anyway. Nope. Didn't happen. Touchdown football for the 7800. Don't hear about any of these games today. Centipede for the 7800. Nobody ever goes back and says, I remember touchdown football on the 7800. Just doesn't happen. One-on-one. Dr. J and Larry Bird basketball. That was actually a really popular game on some other systems. A lot of home computers and things. There's Phoenix for the 2600. Big game. Jungle Hunt for the 2600. Pole Position for the 2600. All of these are sealed, unopened. Can't open them for you. Can't show you what's inside. Could just be a box of rocks. Winter Games for the 7800. They actually came out with winter and summer games for the 2600 as well. It's kind of crazy. There's Joust for the 7800. Donkey Kong Jr. for the 7800. Galaxian for the 2600. Ms. Pac-Man for the 2600. Real Sports Baseball for the 2600. And finally, Asteroids for the 7800. Which, you know, it's just Asteroids. Probably didn't look that great. Sorry, it's hard to get a glare off that plastic and show you what the game looked like because it's so small. So that's about it for tub number 6. I have a small little Activision manual. That was the last thing that was left in the box. So thanks for watching. I'll be back with tub number 9, or what am I on, 7? Yeah. In the next update. Later.